Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to answer the question, how do I make an Astra theme mobile responsive? Okay, first things first, what do we mean mobile responsive? To answer that question, let's head over to our customizer from our dashboard over here. And let's take a look at these bottom settings. Okay, let's let this load up first. But essentially, what responsive means is the ability of a theme or a layout within any WordPress theme to be able to adjust to the user's device. So we're here on the Astra customizer, and down here we have desktop, we have tablet, and we have mobile. Watch what happens to all of these individual elements, such as our site identity and logo, our tagline, our menu over here, our buttons, and our actual content. So let's click on the cell phone over here, and you can see it squishes it all together. Now, some of these, well, this is a starter theme, so whoever created this within the team of Brainstorm Force, this is a starter template, of course, made sure that this theme was already responsive. But how can we do it further? So for instance, we have it here where our site identity and site logo and title are all jumbled together and just create a big mess on the top of our site. Okay, so first things first, let's start with the typography. Okay, so let's adjust the layout of our header here real quick. And we can see here that we can also change to a different logo for our mobile devices. Once we're here on the cell phone, well, mobile device, smartphone tab, you can see it disappears here. And notice that the logo width here on the cell phone icon is 100 pixels, where on the desktop version, it's only 89 pixels. So you can see it changes when we go between the devices that we have. So let's go ahead and decrease that to about 40. That seems nice. We can also go ahead and disable the tagline altogether if we wanted to do that. But we could also configure the font size. So here you can see beside our font, our title font size and our tagline font size, we have the cell phone enabled. And if we click that, we can switch between the different devices. And you can see it automatically adjusts there. And when we're on mobile, we want it to be a bit smaller, of course. And this one can be much smaller. And when we shift between our devices, we might want to adjust it a bit smaller for tablet users. So the same way with our logo over here. Okay, and we can also, what would be a good idea is to adjust the margin. So let's go by percent here, and let's go with a good round number, 5%. And you can see how that pushes in our hamburger menu button here and our logo here inside. And if I put that to 0, if I reset that, that to 0, you can see it pushes it towards the edges. And you want to have a decent margin and padding for your mobile menus and headers, because imagine that you are the user and you log into your own site with your smartphone or your tablet. Usually you wouldn't want to click on items that are close to the edge, or sometimes some people have fat fingers and they end up touching the elements. So to make it more convenient, make it more usable, of course, more responsive for our mobile audience, we want to add a margin of about 5%. Seems fine. But of course, you're free to adjust it however you please. Okay, and that's looking pretty good. And we can adjust the font size so that it's in line. Well, actually, I'll leave it. I'll leave it like that. Okay, that seems good. Now let's go ahead and change the actual typography for the whole site. So let's go over to our global options here and then click on typography. And we just want to make sure that all of our fonts and our paragraphs have a decent margin. Okay, and we want to be able to use fonts that are able to adjust to our mobile application. So if it's bold here for our headers, we can put it on normal, and you can see it kind of shrinks it down. Okay, we can put it on light, and it shrinks it down even further. And you can see that the exclamation point here is within the boundaries. Now, if I put ultra bold, you can see it shifts over. Okay, and we can also change the font sizes, so on and so forth. And if we were to, okay, we can keep it like that. And if we were to, select some of the other options here, such as all caps, you can see that it squishes it together within the boundaries of our mobile configuration. And we can use this one, in fact, and it pushes it together. So there we have our global typography options. And of course, we'll be going through individual pages and posts within the block editor later, just to confirm that everything works. Okay, so we're done with typography. Let's go ahead and talk about container widths. Okay, before we continue, let's double check real quick that we didn't absolutely destroy our website by changing the fonts, our typography, and on tablet it works, and of course on mobile it works just fine. Now let's go ahead over to our blog and take a look at some container widths. Now, since we're using the free Astra version, we can only do so much with container widths. As you can see, we require Astra Pro to enable adjustments to the full width layout and padded layouts and container spacings. But for our purposes right now, we can see that while we're on desktop mode, coming from normal to narrow, this is what it would look like. And we can also configure how narrow our container width would be. And we can also go full width. And it takes up all the space. And I don't think this would affect it too much. Oh, it moves it quite a bit. And let's go ahead with normal. And you'll see that it doesn't actually matter because we're using Astra. So let's move this up, or let's set it back to defaults. 1200 should be good. And we have our container width here, and our menu is no longer smushed. Let's head over to tablet, and it activates our hamburger menu here. And you can see that if we played with the container width, nothing really changes. That's because we're on Astra, it already automatically adjusts to the device. So we're here on the cell phone preview, and if you clicked on narrow, nothing happens. Even if we made this super wide, nothing happens. And if we made it full width, it actually goes to full width. So we can also configure how wide or how thin this is, and we can also make it extra thin. But because it's full width, it really just takes up all the space. So if you wanted your readers to see something like this, let's open up this article here, this blog post. This is how it would look like. But I think it probably makes more sense if we were to go with the narrow container. And everything might be a bit smushed, but at least you'd have some leeway and some space, some margins between your images and your text. So that seems pretty usable. We can try to configure it from here further, make it a bit wider. But it doesn't really do anything because it's already pretty responsive from the back end of Astra itself. Okay, so we're back here on the home page, and let's configure buttons. So of course we have our button presets. We can change how they look like. But let's go with this normal one, this original one over here. And you can see that we can adjust the padding for mobile devices. So let's go with a big round number, and you can see that it makes it a bit bigger. Now, if it was completely 0, you would not be able to see this at all. So as somebody that you want to be able to make your users have a better time, make it more accessible, you want to be able to make it easily seen, easily usable. So put that up to 8 and adjusts the padding, but it makes it easier for our users to be able to tap on those buttons, especially our elderly and just the usual hard of sight. And we can add borders, say 2 pixels, and let's make it bright red. And they don't appear on all of them, but down here we should have one that has a bright red border. Let's make it 5. Okay, and I just had to refresh that. And we can also add a border radius, let's say 5 pixels, and you can see it rounds it out, only for mobile. So if we went to our tablet configuration here, you can see that it's basically the same as our desktop one. Okay, and we might have a border down there, of course, because we've configured it from here. But on our mobile, watch how big these become. Okay, so this is a class example of what it means to make your theme mobile responsive. Okay, next let's go ahead and configure our mobile menu. As you can see, when we're here on our desktop site, we have all of our items set up here. And once we start using our tablet and our smartphone, we wouldn't have any space to keep them on there. So it really makes sense to have the hamburger icon here and give us what is called an off-canvas menu. Let's call it the mobile menu, and we can change it from the thin ones to the thick ones, and we can keep the label there, and we can make the font size a bit smaller, and we can change the icon color to something a bit more visible, like bright orange. Okay, we can make that a bit bigger here. I think it probably makes more sense just to remove it, and we'll have our menu over here. Okay, and we can also have that, but it seems more like settings in my opinion. Okay, we'll have big, thick, and orange there, and we can have a button here, and it gives us an additional background to choose from. Okay, this probably is more visible, or how about this? There we go. That's a bit more visible. And we can also configure the radius and give it and link them all, and it'll become a round. Oops. Let's go ahead and make it. Okay, there we go. Now it has rounded borders, and we can change the font size, but that's for it. And the margin, we can put a 5% margin there, and you can see that right away it moves, and we can bump this up or as far as we want, or as close as we want, just to get it in the right spot to make it easier for our users to be able to see and to click. Okay, so now we're done with customizing the button. Okay, so that looks good. Once we click that, we have just this. So let's configure the menu. We can totally remove this from mobile. Obviously, we wouldn't want to do that. We can toggle the link colors and so on. And you can see we can change the backgrounds as well. Let's make it green. Okay, yeah, there you go. And we can change dividers and divider colors. We can change the spacing. Of course, a good, okay, make it a bit bigger and then give us a bit more margin. Probably more than that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And we can change the menu font to make it a bit bigger or smaller, just to make it easier for our users to view. Okay, and we can make it extra bold. Okay, now we can configure what we want to put on our menu. Now on the off-canvas menu, we can choose to just put our primary menu here. And once we click this, everything from our original menu from our desktop site is here, and it's much larger and it's easier to use and to navigate and to click. But if you wanted a menu for mobile users expressly, let's say there's a button that you can't really click or press, we can go ahead and add items, and we have home, blog, contact, about me, and we have all of these. I'm going to put this in a submenu and put this in the main one, and we can have custom links. Let's say if we had a subscribe now button in our site over here, let's say this join me now one, okay, we can say, and then we can put the link here, okay, and then we can add that. Okay. Okay, let's just say that we put the link over there. We can add this to the menu. Okay, there. And we can add this up top. And we can reorder these. Now this is our mobile menu, and it will only appear for this hamburger icon here. So we can click this, and we have this Join Me Now button that we didn't have on our header for the mobile one. And we have our regular ones. And because we want to conserve space, instead of putting the About Me here, we put it under Contact. And if you click on that, we have About Me, and it'll take us there. Okay, so let's preview this and go between the pages. Okay, we have our archive here. We have our contact page. We have our About Me page. Okay, and we can return home and double check that everything is still fine. Okay, let's save and publish our changes here, and we can double check that we didn't really mess anything up with our desktop site by going through the pages one by one. Now let's go ahead and configure how our images look like for blog posts. Okay, so we have single posts here, and let's say we were on mobile and we were on a single blog post. Let's navigate through our archive here and read more. And because we're here on mobile, we can enable or disable sidebars. Here, it really wouldn't appear because we are on narrow by default. And if you clicked on normal, okay, that's good. It won't up. Our sidebar ends up appearing here at the bottom. Okay, so this is a choice whether or not you want to include this. But it seems like a better use of your time if you could have your categories here on your hamburger menu rather than on the sidebar, as it really takes up a lot of space and wastes our space, in fact, for our mobile applications. Okay, and we can also change our spacing, our margins. For mobile here, let's say 5% on everything seems rather conservative. Okay, and that puts everything inside and makes it easier for us to scroll on one side or the other, or choose to highlight. So imagine you're using this with your thumb, you're scrolling up and down, or if you wanted to click on something, you wouldn't want to click on something inadvertently or highlight something inadvertently. Okay, so that gives our user some space, and that should be it. So we'll publish those, and we can double check that we didn't destroy our page again from our desktop site. Everything's fine, everything's still usable. But on mobile, this is how it would appear. So, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, as it really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Show this kind of video to other nerds like us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.